Council of the City of Norfolk will now commence. Mr. Roberts, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. At this time, I'd like to provide an overview of your proposed agenda for this afternoon's work session meeting. I would like to ask if we can modify the agenda to add a couple of brief event recaps. The first of those, in a moment, I want to ask if Alex Pincus, who is a longtime committee member and former chair of the Norfolk NATO Festival and who's also the director of the NATO Festival Parade, if he can provide just a quick recap of the most recent NATO Festival we had in the spring. It was a huge success, and he just had a couple things I want to say about that. Following that, we've also asked DCM Lavorius Pace and Mr. Ted Baruti of Fest Events to give a recap, focusing on some of the statistics and how we quantify the success of the weekends of the past events. So those are some presentations I'd like to add. Planned on the agenda, we also are planning to hear from Sherry Amos. You know Ms. Amos, she is our external auditor. You hear from her a couple times a year. She is a principal with Clifton Larson Allen, and she's going to give us the annual audit presentation. That is to be followed by the fiscal year 2027 annual audit plan by the city's internal auditor, Mr. Brad Smith, who will give a comprehensive overview of his work program for the upcoming fiscal year. We do have a couple of items that require consideration of a closed session motion. So with those proposed amendments, without any additional objections, I would like to ask if we can call up Mr. Alex Pincus to the lectern.
Okay, Alex, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Mayor, City Manager, City Attorney, and City Clerk. Thank you all, my friends. I asked Pat if I could have a chance to speak to you guys because I felt really strong about I needed an opportunity. I needed to find an opportunity to tell you how proud I am and happy I was with the success of our 73rd annual Norfolk NATO Festival that we had last April. I particularly wanted to emphasize the crucial and significant positive roles played by City of Norfolk staff and our other city partners, and to thank you for providing the festival with its continued support and inspiration for this important, wonderful tradition of the Norfolk NATO Festival. As you may know, I've been volunteering as a director of the parade for the past 27 years. And while each year does present issues and some problems that always need to be overcome, this year in particular, because it coincided with the Carnival Cruise arrival and departure, the logistical challenges were almost overwhelming. But as hopefully you observed, and I know that the mayor and the city manager were there, as well as several of you from council, our team rose to the occasion, and we presented what I think over the 27 years was probably one of the most or best festivals ever. And not to get too far into the weeds, but we had on that day, we're advised by Cruise Norfolk, 4,000 people that had to disembark in the morning and another 4,000 that had to embark by that afternoon, all at the same time as we had about the same number of people coming to the area of downtown Norfolk, whether it was the parade route or Town Point Park. And that made for a huge conglomerate of many, many people all gathering there at one time, and very difficult to deal with the logistics of getting it all done. Included in all that, we had 34 separate motor coach groups, not just motor coaches, but groups attending the overall Norfolk NATO Festival from beginning Thursday through the Sunday of the weekend. And that included the Virginia International Tattoo, the parade, the festival. In addition, we had thousands of people lining the streets. We had 37 different groups in reserve seatings. We had folks coming from 17 different states, easily as many different countries that they were coming from. The parade itself had over 100 units, including 37 different floats, 17 marching bands, hundreds of enthusiastic parade volunteers and participants, including the NATO personnel and their families. there was no way that this was going to happen without it working well in a collaborative effort with the all together. So, and I hope I don't leave people out, but we had the Norfolk NATO Festival and Arts Festival, of course. We had the NATO Commands. We had Nauticus and Cruise Norfolk. We had Fest events. We had Visit Norfolk, Downtown Norfolk Council. We had the regional convention and visitors bureaus from Hampton, Portsmouth, and Virginia Beach, all working together to help move people around as they needed to be to get where they needed to go at the right times. And that included resupplying the ships. We had MacArthur Memorial, we had U.S. Navy volunteers, and the tides. Most importantly, and the greatest appreciation I want to give is for our wonderful support from the tremendous efforts of City of Norfolk's Department of Cultural Facilities and Entertainment, Rob Henson and his group, absolutely fabulous. Hannah Dominique, wonderful. City Parking Division, Frida Burns, she's the best. And she helped guide us into making sure that we could do what we needed to do under those circumstances. Right-of-ways, traffic, public works, stormwater, waste management, obviously the city's Norfolk Police Department, Fire and Rescue, Sheriff's Office, all tremendously important with regard to dealing with our security. It's unfortunately a target, but it is something that we overcame and made sure to take care of. And they did it professionally, courteously, and reliably. I particularly wanted to thank, there were over a dozen City of Norfolk employees who gave me their time to help produce the parade. I'm telling you, they were pulling parade floats. They were there from 6 a.m. till 3 a.m. And they did it with a smile, and they did it in such a way that it just, it made me burst. I ran up to the mayor in the beginning of this thing and said, "Mayor, we got the best city in the state. Our people know how to do this." And it was this overcoming these challenges of this that helped us to do what we did last weekend. Because all of that coordination, figuring out what you can do with the different parking lots and how you can move things around, can't be done without advanced planning, and that's what we were forced to do. We changed our parade route, we changed our time, but we got it done. So thank you for letting me go over time, but I'm really happy to say that our city staff, our city management, our employees, and our partners, we got it done. We can't do it without you, but I look forward to many more years of doing it, and thank you. Yeah,
Thanking everyone, so we're simply going to just say thank you.
you got it, you got it.
Mr. Bates, which?
DCFA.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council, good afternoon. The celebrations of Juneteenth, downtown and South Side, Sail 250, and Harbor Fest, what I call the trilogy of events, last weekend in Norfolk proved to be well-attended, unifying, and showcased the best of everything that makes Norfolk great. While the world came to Norfolk, so did our regional residents and beyond. A brief report by the numbers, these are preliminary numbers. Nearly 500,000 people were in attendance throughout the weekend. Nearly 10,000 people in attendance at Town Point Park during Friday's events, which marks the largest number of attendees in its history. We generated over $50 million in tourism revenue. Parking generated over $178,000 in revenue for all three days. Transit generated nearly 3,000 scooter and bike trips and over 54,000 light rail and ferry trips for all 3 days. We hosted 49 out-of-market tours, no major incidents nor accidents, and major earned media from all three news outlets was invaluable. It all boils down to one of the best weekends in Norfolk for a taste. You thought I would get you beyond it, right? Tourism, art, culture, and entertainment. Special thanks to our council, our co-chairs, Councilwoman Johnson and Councilman McGee, the GOAT, Karen Scherberger, and our beloved Ted Baruti, the entire Norfolk City Council for your support and believing that we could do the impossible, to our city manager for all of his support, encouragement, and his money. And last but not least, to all of Team Norfolk for all that labored to keep us not only beautiful, but safe and secure. Thank you so much, Ted.
No, thank you all. I'll be very brief. Just to maybe take some of the statistics a little bit further and why some of it's actually very conservative right now. It's tough to put our arms around such a big event like this. I'll give you one quick example. I don't know that maybe some of you in this room didn't know we hosted a soccer tournament with all of the countries out off Hampton Boulevard. You all, I think, saw some of the activity off Front Street. There were dozens and dozens of private parties throughout Norfolk and on these ships and things like that. There's so many elements to it that are really hard to tabulate. We technically didn't open the festival weekend each day until noon, but about 8 o'clock every morning, we would let the guests in. They would start walking the waterfront. They just wanted to see the ships. They wanted to be part of the waterfront. They were excited about Juneteenth. So we're getting it together. Some of the easier statistics are like parking. But for us, we've gotten really data heavy with the cell phone counting. This doesn't count 16-year-olds or under. But it still is a great resource. We do that in partnership with the Downtown Norfolk Council, and that takes about 4 or 5 days. So probably by the end of the week, first of next week, we'll get that. The other thing is I don't think people realize is even though, Friday was just unbelievable with Juneteenth, Saturday was just as spectacular and so on, but the ship just left today. They really just left today. And I think as a city, on Alex's point, what a proud moment. We said goodbye to about 25 ships that left our waterfront today while a cruise ship was turning around after just hosting hundreds of thousands of people in the city. So it was really spectacular. But I almost wish, we're going to come back, and Festivents is working really closely with Kelly in communications and marketing, but we'll come back with some fancy videos and pictures and such. But I almost wish we could plug in my cell phone to the TV. If you could kind of follow me around, it's unbelievable. Like, for example, Lavoris had introduced me to Joan Rhodes. She's the artist here in town. She owns a couple galleries. She curated the Attics Theater. We gave her a free booth space for Juneteenth on Friday out there. And her lines at her booth and the activity that happened there was unbelievable. For the first time, we sold Juneteenth merchandise. It's sold out. And so wherever I'm going, I'm watching people buy like the last piece of merchandise or Joan sell artwork. I went on stage with Deputy City Manager Lavoris Pace a few times. He was on stage a lot. Thank you, Lavoris, for all of that on Friday. But if you could see the crowds from his perspective or my perspective on stage, that was probably the crowd, the biggest crowd we've ever had on a Friday in Town Point Park. So just another couple small stories. Think of Harborfest, decades and decades of people serving food, being retailers there. It was probably the busiest Friday on Juneteenth. Even though it was part of Harborfest and Sail 250, the food vendors and the retailers was the best Friday they've ever had in the history of Harborfest weekend. So just some snips there, and I wish you could see all this on my phone. Yesterday I go to Jack Brown's. It's a staff favorite. Staff doesn't get to eat for a few days. I'm going to get everybody a good cheeseburger today. I go in there at 10 o'clock in the morning, in preparation. When you buy 50 cheeseburgers at once, you need to be ahead of the lunch crowd. I say, can I meet the new manager? There's a new district manager there. I say, yeah, that's absolutely fine. He goes, but we've been opening for lunch like 3 hours early. We opened for lunch at 9 because of all the international sailors that have been coming in there. So I'm going table to table to table. I'm wearing all the festival gear, so I'm getting recognized and what have you. I go see those that are here from France, those that are from Argentina. And so I get to this table, only Spanish-speaking gentleman at this one table. He holds up his phone with a Google translator and speaks into it and then holds it up to me and he goes, "We love your city, we love Norfolk," is what I read on how it translated out. And I thought, I wish somebody could follow me around and follow my phone around. But so it's those little stories that will all add up, and we'll show those data points collected. We'll show them in pretty pictures. The 2 nights of fireworks were absolutely amazing. It's been about 12 years since we've done that. It was spectacular. So I think we've opened up that book, again, to be able to do that. I was asking Vice Mayor Thomas if he had seen it, but if you saw, all of us that have had time to watch the news lately, you see some of these other cities, Philadelphia and such, where they have their watch parties or they have the World Cup itself there. Waterside District looked like we were hosting the World Cup. It was unbelievable, the crowds that were in there and the chanting and everything. It was really great. And to steal, the mayor shared a good quote with me a couple years ago that I've borrowed now for 2 years straight. But as we always turn this corner into June and July, it really is the summer of freedom. And the People's Park of Town Point Park hosts this summer of freedom. So here we just finished this unbelievable, diverse weekend. Tomorrow it becomes Pride Fest. We start setting up our Pride Fest. And then a week later it'll be 4th of July. And that's a really unbelievable corner of Town Point Park here for the city. So thank you again for all the support. Thank you, Deputy City Manager LeVar Pace. We look forward to coming back and showing off the real pictures and all the good video.
Ted, before you go, thank you for all you do. We all witness how hard you and your team work for this. This weekend, but more importantly, preparing for the convergence of Juneteenth, Cell 250, and Harvest, and to have 500,000 residents and guests at one time over a weekend is it's not an easy thing to manage, and it went out, as LeVar said, went off without a hitch. But a lot of people made it possible. But also to the manager. I know that JP and others, we actually went into the community because there were Juneteenth celebrations.
Yes.
And thank you, Mr. Manager, for appropriating funding and staff and equipment. And as we travel around, I know also Jeremy was out and about, all of us were out and about, but that spirit just was felt throughout the city.
Yeah.
Celebration of Juneteenth or Emancipation Day isn't new to Norfolk. Some of you may know that the first Emancipation Day in the United States,
That's right.
on January 1st, 1863, happened right here in the city of Norfolk. 4,000 people came. And the first parade in the country of Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, in the United States, right here in Norfolk, Virginia. They started on Beach Street, and they marched to what is now a part of Elmwood Cemetery, West Point, we call it. But so Norfolk has been celebrating freedom, from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so what we experience this weekend isn't new to Norfolk.
No.
It's what we do.
The fact that we can share it now out to these masses, I think is special though.
So just want to say thank you,
No, thank
and the volunteers and having students, college students. I know that they were all leaning in
Yeah.
and just working very hard. And so thank you
Thank
to you and your team. All right, Mr. Manager.
Thanks, sir. These next two presentations are both audit related. The first one I'll call up again, Ms. Amos, who is a principal with Clifton Larson Allen, for the next presentation.
Thank you very much for having me back once again to present to the council. I wish I could say my presentation is going to be as interesting as this weekend's festivities, but I will do my best. So really just want to give you an overview of the fiscal year 2026 audit that we've already started. A lot of this information is going to be very familiar as it hasn't changed from prior years, but just to give you a quick refresher. The scope and deliverables of our engagements is the same. We're going to be expressing an audit opinion over the city's financial statements, as well as the Economic Development Authority, the Employees Retirement System, the school district, and then we also do a very small cash basis audit over the school system's student activity funds. So those will be the audits that we're going to be doing for fiscal year 2026. From a compliance standpoint, we will be issuing a report on internal control over financial reporting compliance. That's where we will highlight if there's any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted within any of those audits. We will also issue an opinion on the city and the schools' major federal programs that are going to be audited as part of the joint single audit. Single audit is your federal grant awards audit, and that is done in collaboration as one report between the city and the schools. And then the Commonwealth also has us doing some compliance-related testing that they have put out through their manual of specifications for audits of counties, cities, and towns. So we will be also complying with the Commonwealth's requirements over areas in that manual. As in prior years, we are going to look at census data testing for the Virginia retirement system for both the city and the schools. That is also a joint report that will be issued, and that is in compliance with that APA specification manual as well. And then lastly, the agreed upon procedures for the sheriff's office. There's a cost transmittal report and landfill report. Again, these are also ancillary reports that are required under the Commonwealth's APA manual as well. And then lastly, I will come back to you all at the end of the audit in the December timeframe to report how the audit went, as well as any findings and other communications we have for the council at that time. Our audit process has not changed. It's in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. It is a risk-based audit approach. So we are going through all the aspects of the city, your operations, your processes, your controls, to determine where we think the significant risks are. And then we will design our audit procedures in response to that. Audit standards do dictate that we design our audit to cover two significant risks. The first one is management override of internal controls. Audit standards say that even in the best control environment that an organization may have, there is a risk that management could override those controls. So we will be designing procedures around that significant risk. And then also revenue recognition. The city has significant revenue that comes in related to taxes, grants, and charges for services that we'll be also taking a look at. Never had any problems in any of these areas, but this is a couple things that audit standards do require that we do a deeper dive into. In terms of our timeline for the audit, we have already gotten started. Probably about a couple weeks ago, we had teams on site that were working on all of the audits, getting them started between the city, the school system, the retirement system, and the Economic Development Authority. So we have already started to do some of the things that we can prepare earlier for. So we can already look at maybe 9-10 months of city transactions at this point. Anything that we can do to help relieve some of the compression at the end of the audit, we do now. So we've already got that underway. We'll come back in July to do some additional testing once we have a full, complete population of the year. And we also do some of those Commonwealth APA procedures in the July timeframe as well. We'll let management close their books out at the end of June and give them a little chance to be able to prepare for year end. And then we will be back in September through November to perform the year-end audit work over the financial information, with the reporting being done by December 15th is always the goal, which is the state's deadline for you all. Everybody's responsibilities for the audit have not changed either. Management has responsibilities to ensure that they are creating an internal control environment, and also programs to prevent and detect fraud. They are also required to set the accounting policies that go into play for the financial information. Those accounting policies are spelled out in the financial report at the end of the audit. They are also responsible for making sure that they are preparing the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Governance, which is you as the council, are required to hold management accountable for their responsibilities and set the strategic direction of the organization. And then CLA, as your independent auditors, are required to make sure that we design our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing principles, making sure we understand your internal control environment, that we plan our audit as a risk-based audit, and that we give an opinion on the financial statements at the end of that audit. One thing I will note is that management is, from our perspective, fully aware of their responsibilities, and we've had no problems in the past with management taking accountability for those responsibilities in terms of the audit process. And lastly, there are 2 new accounting standards that we will be implementing this fiscal year. The first one is GASB Statement 103 related to financial reporting. This one has some, enhancements to the financial statements that will be issued in December. Some of the key highlights related to that are management has a discussion analysis, a narrative, if you will, over the financial information that is in the beginning of the financial document. There's some changes and tweaks, I like to say, related to that under the standards to make it a little bit more readable for the user, so they have a better understanding of what happened during the year in terms of the financial numbers. There's also some little bit of changes in the presentation to your proprietary funds. These are your water, your wastewater, parking, those types of funds related to presentation. It's not taking away from anything, it's just more reclassifications and how things are recorded in those statements. And then probably the other thing that will be into play for the city is the budgetary comparison information. They're adding a little bit more information, again, to make the statements a little bit more understandable for the reader. This year, there's a variance column that's going to be added to the original and final adopted budgets to help the reader see the changes in the budget process. Management has already started working on the implementation of these standards and provided us an outline of the changes that they are planning on making, so we could go ahead and make sure we're on the forefront of it and not wait until the end to make sure these changes are good to go for financial reporting. And then lastly, GASB Statement 104 related to capital assets. Really the main area that I think will affect the city and some of the other deliverables, such as maybe the Economic Development Authority, is the classification of any assets held for sale. There's additional disclosures and making sure those are presented correctly in accordance with the standard. Everything else that's related to 104, management has already pretty much been doing, so I don't see any significant changes related to that. Other than that, that's all I had for this year, and we'll be glad to take any questions you might have.
Ms. Doyle.
Sure, thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
I know we've had challenges with the school division being prepared for audits. I know I spoke to Dr. Rose about this when he first came. He actually sat in Pat's chair and apologized for that delay and promised that wouldn't happen again. I really want to make sure that we're on top of that and so that they don't delay again and again, because it was, 5 years that they have been struggling with getting their audit prepared in time. So I just want to caution us now, whatever we can do to support you, and Pat, whatever we need to do to support the division so that we don't experience that again. Although I'm pretty confident that Dr. Rose does not want to experience that either. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Smith has the next presentation.
Smith, welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council, City Manager. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2027 Annual Audit Plan. Today I'll be talking about the purpose of the Annual Audit Plan, the sources used to develop the Annual Audit Plan, the audit phases, proposed audits, and other ongoing projects. The purpose of the Annual Audit Plan is to establish the framework for audits to be conducted. It guides the audit activities and workflow for the City Auditor's Office and offers and outlines audit focus for a 12-month period. Now, this plan must be flexible and is subject to change due to unanticipated higher risk issues, investigations, and other priorities. Some of the sources used to develop the annual audit plan, audit leads would be prior audits, city financial audit, and our citizens, internal leads, city auditor staff, a risk assessment questionnaire, and previous audit plan. Hotline leads, inquiries, investigations, and complaints. external leads, other locality audits, and state and federal audits, city council priorities, and specific requests, as well as management concerns, city administration. There are 3 phases in an audit. You have planning phase, fieldwork phase, and report writing phase. During the planning phase, we have an interest conference. We perform walkthroughs of processes, we interview staff, and we establish our test objectives. In our fieldwork phase, we gather and evaluate evidence based on our test objectives, and then we develop and issue our findings. And in the report phase, we prepare a draft report, we have an exit conference, and we issue our final report. And these are proposed audits for FY27. Right now, we are in the report writing phase for police overtime and grants compliance. We're in the fieldwork phase of retiree payment process and citywide vehicle fuel card. And the proposed new audits for 27, fire rescue medication process, recreation process and open space program, revenue and cash handling processes, temporary service contracts, citywide contract monitoring procedures, human services, benefits and self-sufficiency programs, Norfolk Public Library, workflow and technical service processes, and follow-up reviews of previous audit recommendations. And the other ongoing projects include inquiries and investigations from our fraud, waste, and abuse hotline, citywide expenditures review, missing, lost, and stolen property report, credit card transactions review, cash counts, administration of city council special requests, and other city agency requests. I'm happy to answer any questions.
It's just a plan. Thank you, sir. Robert, you have another?
That's all we have for the work session. We do have a couple items that require consideration of a closed session motion.
I move that members of the council assemble informally in closed meeting on June 23rd, 2026 at 4:40 p.m. in the 10th floor conference room of the City Hall building in the City of Norfolk for the purposes which are set out in clauses 29, 29, 8, and 1 of subsection A of section 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended. Clause 29, discussion of the award of a public contract or lease agreement for the Norfolk Admirals at scope where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the public body. Clause 29, discussion of the award of a public contract or lease agreement for the Norfolk Ties at the Harbor Park where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the public body. Clause 8, consultation with legal counsel regarding possible modification of council rules of procedure, section 8-1 entitled broadcasting of meetings where advice about the applicable laws is needed. Clause 1, discussion of board and commission appointments. Mr. Clanton. Aye. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mr. McGee.
Aye.
Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Dr. Alexander.
Aye.
Meeting closed.
All right, Mr.